Good evening, friend, and welcome to Fantel's Sleep Stories. Tonight we'll take a quiet trip back to Hawkins, Indiana, to a simpler time, long before the nights turned strange, before the missing posters, before the flickering lights. Back to a basement glowing under a single warm lamp, where four friends gather around a table, dice in hand, ready to lose themselves in a world of heroes and dragons. Outside, you'll hear the sound of rain gently tapping against the window, and calming music low in the background. The perfect setting for a story about imagination, friendship, and those rare perfect nights when the rest of the world simply melts away. Before we begin, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy stories like this, consider subscribing to my humble little channel, and not to miss the next time we return to Hawkins. With that out of the way, settle in, get comfortable, let your breathing slow, and drift with us into the quiet corners of Hawkins, where the adventure begins with the roll of a die. It's a typical Thursday night in Hawkins, the kind that smells faintly of rain and laundry softener. The houses on Maple Street hum with the low murmur of televisions and clinking dinner plates. Outside, the street has gone quiet. Inside the Wheeler home, lights glow warm behind drawn curtains, and down in the basement, something familiar is about to begin. The living room is dim and familiar, the kind of narrow stretch of carpet that absorbs every footstep. Mike sits at the dinner table, shoveling the last few bites of mashed potatoes into his mouth with barely a chew. His mum is still mid-sentence, talking to his dad about something to do with the neighbour's fence. But Mike is already pushing back his chair. "Can I be excused?" he asks, voice already rising with hope. Karen Wheeler gives him a look. "You can wash the dishes first." Mike doesn't miss a beat. "Nancy and I switched days, remember? She promised she'd do it tonight." Nancy, halfway through her green beans, lets out a groan. "Oh, fine, whatever." Karen looks at her, eyebrows raised. Nancy sighs, throws her fork down with a soft clink. "I said fine." Mike doesn't wait for further permission. He grabs his backpack and bolts down the hallway, the muted patter of socked feet the only sound as he makes his escape. He slips past the living room, quiet except for the ticking of the wall clock, and heads toward the door under the stairs. He opens it gently. A single bulb flickers to life above the steep basement steps, casting a warm cone of light over the handrail. The air smells faintly of dust, old board games, and laundry detergent. As he descends, each creaking stair adds to the rhythm of the evening. He can already picture the setup, the spread of paper maps, the neat stacks of index cards, the scuffed up dice tumbling across the tabletop. It's not just a basement. Not tonight. Tonight, it's a portal. He starts arranging the table. Map out, dice in place, character sheets stacked neatly by roll. There's a small buzz of anticipation in his chest, a familiar current. Then, the sound of the front door opening upstairs. "Hi, Mrs. Wheeler," Dustin's voice calls, already halfway down the hall. "Hello, Dustin. You want something to drink?" "No thanks. I'm good." Mike grins to himself. Moments later, the basement door bursts open, and Dustin practically leaps down the stairs, two at a time. "Hey, you're early," he remarks, the instant he lands. He's perched on the edge of an armchair, legs akimbo, uniting action figure sneakers with a Cheetos green sock. A shoebox sits open next to him. Taped inside is Dice Containment Protocol. Classified. Mike grins, placing a single pack of red and blue dice gently on the coffee table. I figured I'd preview the dungeon map before everyone else shows up. Smart, Dustin nods, pulling aside a bright orange beanbag. Got root beer on ice, too. Thought it'd help with concentration. The floorboards groan again, and Lucas enters, helmet in hand. Sorry I'm late, he announces, shaking off droplets. AV Club held me back. Mr. Clark lost his projector lamp again. He spots Dustin and slaps him playfully on the shoulder. Did you make another snack castle? Dustin laughs. Always. You want cheese or Doritos? Lucas smiles, slinging his helmet into a corner. I'll take whatever doesn't blow up my stomach. Finally, Will slides down the stairs, hair damp, an envelope in hand. He sits quietly across from the rest, placing it gently on the table. Examiner said I copied too much from the textbook, he murmurs, glancing at Mike. But he said it was bright work, so no big deal, Mike says quickly. This isn't school. We're here. He waves at the envelope. What's that? Will shrugs, brushing back a lock of hair. Just a note from my mum. She wanted it before game night. Dustin offers him a friendly thumbs up. Good call. Mike taps the tabletop, and soft lights from a tangle of Christmas strings flicker on. Ready? He asks, unfolding the folded map with a practiced flourish. The card table cloth ruffles with each motion. We pick up where we left off. The party is outside the hidden cave, with Will's cleric still unconscious inside the temple. A hush falls. Even the hum of the old stereo dims in their awareness. That's the tensest cliffhanger, Lucas says. Feels like we paused mid-scream. Will lets out a quiet breath. I want to see who comes for him. Mike nods. Then let's roll. He distributes the character sheets in a slow, ceremonial motion. Dustin, you're up. You have Guardian Sword +1, and the dungeon door is sealed by those glowing rooms. He points at the board, rough sketches in pencil, from faded red felt pen and thumbtacks. Roll for lot breaking. The basement grows still except for the squeak of a die skittering across the table. Dustin watches it bounce. After a moment, he grabs it and peers at the result. I got a 12. Lucas pokes the map. Okay, 25 is needed. That's close. Mike leans forward. Yeah. Try again with your thief bonus. Dustin smiles, flicks the die again. 18. A chorus of whispers. Locked. Try Leon's scroll? Maybe a simple lever. Mike flicks a clipboard. Let me check notes. You can use a minor spell from Will's cleric once he's up, but you need the scroll or you risk burning the door down. Lucas pretends to gasp in horror. No ignition in the dark. I could ruin the ambush. Will offers quietly, almost to himself. I think I can patch him together when we get in. Yeah, Mike breathes. You'll roll his hit points then. He glances at Will. You down? Will nods once. Roll for healing. The lighting shifts as a distant thunderclap rattles the window. Lightning outlines their profiles. Dustin munching Cheetos. Lucas's brow furrowed in concentration. Will's quiet resolve. Let's roll. Mike quietly nudges. The die bounces again. They wait. Mike holds his breath. The die stops. A 12. Mike exhales, a smile touching his lips. just enough. You pry it open. Will, say the prayer. Will closes his eyes and murmurs softly, beneath the stone that binds the door, heal again as hearts restore. Mike pulls the door open on the board. All right, Will, your cleric heals. 7 hit points. Dustin whoops. Lucas grins. Will nods. The game continues. The rain had started to tap against the basement windows. Not hard, just a rhythm, like distant footsteps pacing patiently along the edge of the house. The kind of sound that settles in your chest, anchors you in place, makes the outside world feel like another realm. Dustin reached for the root beer with a practiced motion, cracking the cap with a small hiss. He sipped, adjusted his character sheet, and leaned back into the orange beanbag, like a war general observing a battlefield. Okay, Mike said, scanning his notes. He had arranged the next encounter with the kind of care that only a 15-year-old dungeon master could summon. The boys watched him as he laid out 2 new index cards, each marked with symbols, runes, and 1 ominous question mark. 2 corridors split from the altar room. He began. One smells of moss and ash. The other is perfectly clean. But you hear this faint humming sound, like bees, or something pretending to be bees. Fake bees, Lucas muttered. Definitely worse. Will leaned in, eyes darting across the crude sketch of the dungeon. He pointed to the left corridor. We go moss. Fire and ash means fire mage. Maybe the one who cursed me. Mike nodded. You descend slowly, 10-foot ceilings, stone walls with torch brackets. There's a draft. You pass 3 skeletons nailed to the wall. Each has a different emblem carved into their armor. One of the skeletons, Mike grinned here, has a piece of parchment nailed to its ribs. He extended a folded scrap of paper toward Dustin. You're closest. Read it. Dustin took it, unfolded the note, and began with ceremonial gravity. The light burns quickest in the hearts of those who fear the flame. Will shivered, despite the warmth. That's a warning. Lucas frowned. Or a clue. What if it means we should use light, a spell? Mike nodded. Or maybe it means someone among you is afraid. Not it, said Dustin immediately. Also not it, Lucas shot back. Will smiled faintly, not saying a word. The sound of the rain had deepened, now accented by a low thunder roll somewhere in the distance. The storm felt far away, but present, a background character, lurking. The room ahead is sealed by an iron door, Mike continued, with 3 empty slots, shaped like the emblems on the skeletons. Dustin clicked his tongue. So, it's a puzzle door. Okay. Lucas, check the skeletons. What shapes we got? Lucas, mind flipping over each one. Star, crown, and snake. Mike nodded. Choose carefully. One wrong emblem and the door triggers a trap. They discussed, argued, hypothesized. The debate raged for minutes, filled with overlapping theories and snack breaks. Eventually, Will offered, We try Star Crown and we leave the snake. Mike smiled. You insert the emblems. The door shudders and opens. No trap. A collective exhale from the group. Dustin raised his root beer. Cheers to the cursed one. Will blushed. Lucas clapped him on the back. The game moved on, deeper into the temple. Time unfurled like a sleeping cat, and above them, the storm watched silently through the glass. The next chamber was round and windowless, drawn in charcoal strokes on Mike's hand-drawn map. "A library," he declared, adjusting the dim desk lamp to mimic torchlight. Dust rises from every corner. Most scrolls are too rotted to read, but in the center, a single pedestal, and on it, a glowing book. Will leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Is it trapped?" Mike gave a slow nod. "Probably." Lucas grabbed a pencil. "We send the rogue. Dustin, that's you." "Obviously," Dustin said, already reaching for his dice. I inspect the pedestal for traps. He rolled. The die spun, landed with a clack. 17, Dustin grinned. "Success," Mike said. "You detect a fine filament of wire at the book's base. You can attempt to disarm." Dustin rolled again, this time lower. 9. Mike raised an eyebrow. "You cut the wire, but not fast enough. A burst of red gas floods the room. Everyone roll Constitution saves." Groans filled the basement. The boys grabbed dice, murmuring numbers. "I got a 15, Lucas said. 10, said Will. 11, added Dustin. Mike tapped his notes. Lucas holds his breath and coughs but stays standing. The others are woozy. Will stumbles backward, eyes fluttering. "You each lose 2 HP. Dustin mock swooned into the beanbag. "Tell my story, brothers." Mike chuckled. Inside the book you find sketches, arcane runes. One of them matches the mark on Will's cursed bracelet. Will looked up, interested. "So we're close." Mike nodded. "You're getting closer." The thunder outside cracked louder now. The lights flickered just once, enough to make them glance upward. Lucas pointed at the ceiling. "Power might go? Should we pause?" Dustin shook his head. "We ride the storm." Mike looked around, then leaned forward, voice quieter. "The next room isn't on the map." They leaned in. Mike placed a blank card in the center of the table. It reveals itself only to those who walk without fear. They stared at the card. A silence fell, deeper than any they'd shared all night. Then, Will whispered, "Let's go in." And they did. The air in the basement had shifted. Not just because of the thunder outside or the warm breath of the old furnace humming beneath the stairs. No, something in the story had changed. The boys felt it. The game had deepened. Mike leaned over the table and turned the blank card slowly. One edge had curled from the warmth of the desk lamp. He didn't draw a map this time, just let the silence linger. "You pass through the veil," he began, his voice quieter, steadier. "And the world bends. The hallway is gone. You're standing on black marble. Above you is a sky with no stars, just a single moon, cracked like glass." Dustin whispered, "Cool." Mike smiled faintly. "The wind here tastes like iron. You see pillars rising from the ground, 6 of them. At the base of each, a statue of a figure cloaked in shadows." Lucas tapped his pencil against his sheet. "Are they watching us?" "Not yet," Mike replied. "But they will." Will tilted his head. "Do I feel the curse react?" Mike nodded. "The mark on your bracelet pulses, faintly, like it's breathing. You sense this is the place, the source, the answer." Outside, the wind had picked up, sending a tap-tap against the window pane. The storm was tightening. There are inscriptions on the floor, Mike continued. Old language, not common, not elvish, something older. One of them glows dimly. Dustin leaned in. I roll arcana. Roll it. Dice tumbled across the table. 19. Mike exhaled. You recognize one phrase, 3 trials, 1 truth, light, blood, and silence. Lucas let out a low whistle. That's not ominous at all. Mike grinned. You have 3 choices. The first statue, holding a lantern. The second, a dagger. The third, hands pressed in prayer. Will took a moment, then said, We go with the lantern. We need light. As you step forward, Mike said, shifting in his chair. The statue cracks down the center. Inside is a stairwell, spiraling downward, lined with torches that ignite as you descend. The furnace rattled softly. A shiver passed through the room that had nothing to do with temperature. Mike pressed on. At the bottom is a chamber, round, like the library, but empty. In the center, a brazier, burning with blue flame. Dustin raised his hand. Do we touch it? Lucas shook his head. That's how you lose eyebrows. Will looked thoughtful. I step forward, offer a piece of the bracelet. Mike stared at him. Really? Will nodded. Mike leaned back. You remove a thread from the cursed bracelet, toss it into the fire. The flame turns white. It flares up, but doesn't burn you. Instead, it casts light on the chamber walls. Lucas blinked. What's there? Carvings, Mike said. Of each of you, your characters, etched into the stone, like you've always been part of this place. No one spoke for a moment. Then Dustin whispered, That's heavy. Will smiled. That means we're close. Mike looked down at his notes, then back at them. You hear something behind you. Footsteps. Just one set. And the basement went quiet again. For a long moment, no one moved. Even the dice sat still, like they were listening too. Mike leaned in, eyes scanning the paper in front of him, even though he already knew what came next. The footsteps are slow, he said. Measured. Whatever's approaching, it's not sneaking. It's not afraid. Lucas narrowed his eyes. Is it hostile? Mike hesitated. You don't know. Not yet. But you do hear it stop. Right at the edge of the light. Dustin reached for his root beer, then changed his mind. I cast light. I want to see what's there. Mike nodded. The brazier flares. The white flame pulses outward like a heartbeat. And there, just beyond the stairs, you see him. He paused. A figure in robes, long, tattered, face hidden by a bronze mask. In one hand, he holds a staff made of bone. In the other, a single black die. Will whispered, What does he do? He raises the die, Mike said, and lets it fall. You all hear it. One clear click. But none of you see the number. Thunder cracked hard above them. The basement lights flickered once, dimmed, then steadied. They all looked up, briefly. Mike didn't stop. He speaks. His voice is old, dusty. He says, You have passed the first trial. You have brought light to the place of forgetting. But light alone is not enough. Lucas sat up straighter. What happens next? He points to Will. The mark you carry, he says, was not given. It was traded. A piece of you remains in the chamber of silence. To retrieve it, you must give something in return. Will blinked. Like what? Mike looked up from his notes. The figure extends his hand. You feel a pull, not painful, but insistent. He's offering a choice. Will paused, then softly, I give him my sword, the one we found in the crypt. Mike nodded. You step forward, place the sword in his hand. He closes his fingers around it. Then, he vanishes. Dustin let out a breath. Okay, what now? Behind where he stood, Mike continued, is a new path, a door of obsidian etched with the same rune as the bracelet, and on it, just one word, truth. They stared at the board. The word hung there like mist. Footsteps creaked on the floor above. Then a voice. Mike. Nancy. They all froze. Mom says you took the tape recorder again. She wants it back before she leaves for book club. Mike groaned, pressing his forehead to the table. Lucas laughed. Time to face your own trial. Mike stood reluctantly. Pause game. I'll be back. As he climbed the stairs, Dustin leaned over to Will. Think the figure comes back? Will looked down at his character sheet. I think he never left. They waited in the quiet, dice untouched. The game paused but never really stopped. Outside, the storm rumbled on. The pause stretched, but not awkwardly. In fact, it felt earned. Dustin gently tipped his dice into the shoebox lid, sorting them by color like little pieces of treasure. Lucas leaned back, his hands behind his head, staring at the ceiling as if the patterns in the popcorn texture might whisper the next move. Will just sat quietly, fingers grazing the edge of his character sheet. They didn't need to talk. They were still in it. Eventually, the creak of footsteps returned. Mike descended with dramatic slowness, holding the tape recorder in both hands like a cursed relic. Victory, he said, but at what cost? Lucas gave a mock applause. To Nancy or the campaign? Mike slid back into his seat. Both. He adjusted his notes, cleared his throat, and let the quiet settle before speaking. The obsidian door opens inward. No sound, just cold air. You step into the chamber of silence. No one interrupted now. Mike continued. It's circular, polished stone walls. No torchlight, but you can see. Somehow, everything is cast in a soft gray hue, like moonlight filtered through fog. Dustin whispered, This place gives me the creeps. In the center, Mike said, is a pool of water, perfectly still, and suspended above it, a mirror, just floating, tilting slightly, like it's breathing. Will leaned forward. What happens if we look in? Mike answered without hesitation. You see yourselves, but different. Each reflection is a version of your character, but altered. The warrior sees his sword shattered. The rogue is blindfolded. The cleric, he glanced at Will, is alone. The room went quiet. Then Lucas broke it, gently. What do we do? The figure's voice returns, Mike said. You don't see him, but you hear it, like breath in your ear. To take back what was traded, you must accept what was hidden. Dustin reached for his die. We roll. Mike nodded. Each of you. Wisdom, save. One by one, the dice clattered softly. 17, Lucas said. 14, Dustin added. Will rolled last. The die rolled and landed slowly. 11, Mike tapped his pen. You each feel the mirror pulse. The rogue's blindfold fades. The warrior's sword mends. The cleric, he looked to Will, finds he's not alone. His reflection reaches out a hand. Will blinked. Do I take it? Mike smiled. That's up to you. Will paused, then nodded. I take it. Mike leaned back. The reflection touches yours. There's a warmth, then a shock. You fall backward, gasping, but the curse is gone. The bracelet shatters. Lucas let out a cheer. Dustin pumped a fist. Will just exhaled. Mike said, as the shards hit the floor, the chamber fades. You're standing in the temple again, together, the light from the brazier dimming behind you. And upstairs, a clock chimed 8 times. Dustin looked up. Already? Lucas grabbed his backpack. My mom's gonna kill me. Will stood slowly, still holding the character sheet. That was Really good, Mike. Mike shrugged, a little awkward. You guys made it work. They packed in quiet efficiency. No rush, but with the rhythm of a ritual nearly complete. At the door, Dustin turned. Same time next week? Everyone nodded. The storm had passed by the time the bikes were out. The air outside was soaked. Clean in that way, only a spring rain could manage. The clouds had split, revealing a sky smeared in violet and navy. Porch lights flicked on up and down the block, each one glowing like a watchful eye. Mike stood in the open doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder, watching the last of the boys pedal away. Their laughter drifted back toward him, light and soft, fading with each spin of the wheels. Inside, the basement was quieter now, not empty, just cooling down, like the air after a campfire's gone out. Mike padded down the steps one last time that night. The table was still set up, dice scattered, the map still unfurled, one corner fluttering slightly in the draft. He took a moment, let the silence breathe. The character sheets were still there. He gathered them, stacked them neatly, smoothed out a wrinkle in Will's paper. He touched the broken bracelet he'd used as a prop, now in 2 clean halves. Thought about taping it together again. Then the door at the top of the stairs creaked. Nancy. Hey, she said, not annoyed, not loud, just there. Hey, Mike echoed. She lingered a moment. You left the lamp on. I know, just cleaning up. Nancy stepped down a few stairs, glanced at the table. You guys really go all in, huh? Mike smirked. It matters. To them. To me. She nodded slowly. I get it, just don't lose sleep over fake curses, okay? He laughed. We broke it. Will's fine. Good, she said. Then, before disappearing upstairs again, dinner's in the fridge. Mom made meatloaf. Thanks. The light dimmed behind her. Mike sat back down. Alone now, he picked up a die, one of Dustin's greens, and rolled it absently. It came up 7. Lucky number, or just a middle roll. He set it down gently, then closed the notebook. The house settled. Outside, frogs had started to sing in the drenched bushes, and somewhere, in a not-so-far corner of Hawkins, maybe the mirror still floated, waiting. In the darkest part of the night, Hawkins held its breath. Streetlights blinked into empty cul-de-sacs. The roads were slick but quiet. Windows glowed blue from late-night reruns, their sound drowned by the steady chirp of crickets and the low hum of appliances left running. The storm had scrubbed the town clean, but some things always lingered. Dreams, stories, and the quiet pulse of what had just been imagined. In the basement, everything was still. The game table now sat empty. The dice had been collected. The maps rolled. The books returned to shelves that bore the wear of many campaigns. But even in that emptiness, something buzzed, like the echo of a laugh or a faint impression left behind by thought. Not a ghost, but a residue. And in the center of the table, one item remained, a single index card. Blank. It hadn't been left there deliberately. Not really. Just one of those things that escapes notice at the end of a long night. But under the dim lamp's glow, it looked almost intentional, like a placeholder, or an invitation. If anyone had been there to flip it over, they'd have found a symbol, just a faint pencil mark, a circle divided by a jagged line, something that hadn't been part of tonight's campaign. Not yet. Upstairs, the house had gone to sleep. Nancy's door clicked shut. The fridge hummed its lullaby. And in Mike's room, the light under the blanket flickered as he finished scribbling something new in his notebook. A new story, a new arc, a new trial, waiting in the dark. In another part of town, Will rolled over in bed, eyes briefly flicking open like someone had whispered his name. Then he turned, wrapped in the warmth of dreams not yet over. Dustin's bedside clock blinked 1:17 a.m. Lucas slept with headphones still tangled in his curls, and the town, small, peculiar Hawkins, dreamed alongside them. Outside, the moon was full, the kind of moon that made shadows move in the trees, but the basement stayed quiet, waiting, and the blank card waited too.